You're listening to the Business Communicators.
Speaking of the holidays, did you guys see the news about Innovex? It's an oil and gas company here in Texas, and their CEO, Adam Anderson, actually wanted to, I don't know, just kind of celebrate and his employees and his staff. And he wanted to give them, I guess, a holiday gift, which he had actually reached out to a company, North Face, to print 400 jackets with the North Face logo and then his corporate brand on the side. And North Face actually came back and rejected the order. And the reasoning was because it was not consistent with their brand standards. And they said, Innovex is an oil and gas company. We don't necessarily support it. So Anderson took things into his own hands. And Thomas, I'll let you fill us in on what he did.
So he, in essence, penned an open letter back to the CEO of North Face, and then it went viral, probably from some internal person clicking on it, shared across all the social media, and it pretty much lays out how North Face wouldn't be around if it wasn't for oil and gas. The products they make are phenomenal, but they're made with petroleum-based products. The shipping is done with petroleum-based things. But he also ties it back into how cheap energy is one of the reasons why, as a society, Americans in particular, and how we need cheap energy across the globe to increase health and safety and wellness. And that it's very pot calling the kettle black. Hey, we can't support you to do this. We can't support you to do that. And it's gone viral. And it's one of those things that I truly applaud, because you hear so many people regurgitating whatever snippet came from the news or whatever snippet that a friend of a friend of a friend said. You know, we talked about on this podcast about the anti-vaxxers or other people who are just blatantly telling false. And so I think it's great that it's a stand to say, you know what, we're all in this together. Is it the solution? Probably not, but we need this to get to where we need to be. And to sit there and say, we're not going to do this. I think it's a huge gaffe in North Face, because while, yes, they have a whole lot of college kids who buy their stuff, and a whole lot of backpackers and mountain climbers who use their stuff, because it is a really good product. I used to go backpacking, and it was one that I would buy, and instead of putting it through its paces, I would trust it off the start. You need us as much as we need you. And I'm wondering what's going to happen to their sales in the long term. When I first read it, it reminds me of Under Armour. Because my alma mater, we were talking colleges before we started recording this episode, was Texas Tech. And Texas Tech was one of the first Under Armour sponsored teams. And Under Armour had no cotton. And the CEO came out saying, we're never going to make a cotton product. We're never going to make a cotton product. Well, Texas Tech is in the middle of cotton fields. The school emblem has cotton balls on it. Magically, when it came time for renegotiation of contracts, they now invented charged cotton. So is this something that North Face is going to try to do? That's immediately where my mind went to, is, are they going to alienate a core group of customers? Because 400 fleeces is not going to break North Face.
Yeah, but
this going viral might.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, 400 fleeces, that's, $4,000 for the company. That's not going to, really impact the bottom line. But I do find it interesting to look at that balance, between the energy transition, where energy companies want to be by 2050 to where they are now, and what is that bridge? How do we get there together? And North Face isn't the only company doing this. Patagonia has this very, very similar stance on a lot of their projects. They don't want to be associated with the sin companies, the merchants of death, if you will. If you remember Thank You for Smoking back in, I think, 2005, 2006. Interestingly enough, Eddie Bauer actually said that they would complete this order. But Hattie, I know that you work specifically with internal comms when it comes to petrochems. And this is, the industry that is helping make some of these products. And of course, you've got the whole supply chain. And I'm kind of curious on what your take is from this. As an internal communicator, are you okay with the CEO going out there and making this public rather than just shrugging it off and going with a different vendor?
It depends on how you look at it. Because the one thing, North Face saying what they said, it goes both ways. There's balance. But the thing for me is that North Face comes across a little bit hypocritical, if you ask me. Whether it was this CEO who put it out there, or anybody else who probably would have put it out there later on. They were just raising the fact that, oh, you're going to not do business with me because I'm a certain type of business, yet your products are made with some of the same, petroleum that it not only shipped, but your materials. And it even says it on the North Face website under their product details that, their petroleum-based fabrications are listed under their on their website. So before you, I guess the thing for me is before you say something like that and you put that messaging out there, understand where it's coming from, because it almost like you're greenwashing. Your intent may have been a good intent, but it kind of fell short for me. So that's for me. This just sounded like a hypocrite.
I have a question. Has North Face come out and publicly made a statement? Because I haven't, as of yesterday, I didn't see any statements from North Face. And I was wondering if it was just the call center person who was taking the order said, nope, sorry, I can't do that, and not necessarily running it up the food chain, or with this whole media, is this a publicity stunt in some form or fashion?
Go ahead, Hattie.
No, I was just going to say that North Face didn't respond directly to the case, but a statement they put out to the Financial Times said that it thoroughly investigates product requests to ensure that they align closely with our goals and commitments surrounding sustainability and environmental protection.
Yeah, I think that is something that I've had personal experience with. In college, my freshman year, we actually had a North Face jackets that were made with my fraternity, and they were the most comfortable, like they were the coolest jackets on campus. And that was a big thing at Baylor during the wintertime. You always get like fleeces made for, formals or winter events or things like that. My sophomore year, we tried to get more North Face fleeces printed, and North Face declined the request to have 100 because they didn't want to be associated with Greek life, which totally fine, acceptable. We were disappointed. I think we ended up going with Columbia to make the vest, and they weren't the same type quality, but it is something that North Face has done for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years, and making these decisions. It's just there's not a lot of consistency in how they deal with that, and I think that's where I have the concerns. But I do want to give kudos to Adam Anderson, the CEO of Innovex, for being bold and actually going out there and going to bat for his company. And a lot of times you see these industry partners like API, the American Petroleum Institute, who advocate on behalf of the industry. But I think it is good for companies to advocate on behalf of themselves at times. I think that's so important. Interestingly enough, kind of backing what Thomas said, kind of explaining everything, Dan Crenshaw, who is the Texas District 2 representative here in Houston, you might have recognized him on TV. He had the whole deal with Saturday Night Live back in 2018, 2019. But he actually sent out a tweet saying, yes, North Face, who's fully divested from oil and gas except for their supply chain, synthetic petroleum-based materials, transportation, retail stores, manufacturing, virtue signaling is exhausting. Stop it. So I think that kind of also goes along with what Hattie said, is that you've got to find the right balance, if you're going to take a stand, so that you're not perceived as just greenwashing, that you're doing it for the right reasons. So I think if anyone out there is kind of, building that corporate narrative or trying to, do the right thing when it comes to sales, maybe not criticize an industry, figure out how you can work together, to solve a problem. I think that is how we can move forward and not just remain stagnant.
And I'm going to echo your point about Dan Crenshaw on Saturday Night Live, because he took that experience of Pete Davidson making fun of him as a learning opportunity and education point. And so, yeah, I applaud this company for taking a stand and opening up that dialogue of communications to say that it's not this or that. It has to be a combination or a both to get where we're going. And so I think that that's a very good point, that, if you see something, say something, but be willing to listen and be willing to make the change and educate yourself. And this is the opportunity to do it, and not just be like, oh, sweep it under the rug.
Or think before you speak.
100%. We actually used to tell our student athletes that when I worked in sports: think then tweet. And we've seen so many people get in trouble from things they post on Twitter, Facebook, and, it ends up getting into that cancel culture. But at the end of the day, this country, this world, we need to come together to work. We need to work together, and I feel like right now we have, here's one side, here's another side, and there's this huge gap. It's how do we bridge that gap to make sure that we can, create a better environment, a better culture, a better world for our kids, our grandkids, and so many generations past us.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators.